Welcome to Twilight Fables, where fairy tales are retold with darkness in their veins and sorrow in their hearts. Tonight, we dive beneath a sea that remembers every soul it has ever taken. This is the Little Mermaid, the bride of the sea. The sea was not gentle the night she saw him die. It was vast and dark and endless, a cathedral of crushing black water, and yet, even there, she saw him. He fell from the ship like a silver coin tossed into a wishing well. The storm swallowed the cries of the sailors, and the world above fractured into 1,000 shards of lightning. The mermaid, drifting beneath the tempest, saw the bright thread of his body cutting through the deep. He sank as if the ocean desired him, as if it had waited for him. She had seen men before, their ships like drifting bones across the horizon, their laughter faint and far above her reach, but never one like this. There was something soft in his face, even as he struggled against the cold, something that pulled at the old ache inside her chest, that ache that had no name. She swam to him, faster than she ever had, through waters that cut like glass. When she reached him, his eyes were still open, blue and unseeing. She pressed her lips to his, breathed air into him, the way only a creature of the sea could, and the world seemed to still. The thunder rolled away into the distance. She carried him upward to the surface, where the rain fell like shattered pearls. His heartbeat returned beneath her palms, weak but there, and in that fragile pulse she heard something like music. He would never know who saved him. He would never see her face, but she felt something ignite, a flame beneath her ribs that had no place beneath the sea. When she laid him on the sand of the quiet cove, dawn was breaking. The sky was the pale colour of drowned rose petals, and the waves whispered secrets against the shore. She brushed a lock of hair from his brow, afraid to touch too much, to leave too much of herself on him. And when he stirred, when his lips parted to draw breath, and his eyes fluttered open, she fled. She dove beneath the water, heart pounding, and lingered just below the waves, watching. He rose weakly, his gaze searching the horizon. His lips moved, calling out to something unseen. For a moment, she believed he might see her, that he might know. But then others came, men and women from the nearby village. They lifted him, wrapped him in cloth, spoke to him in that strange language of air. And the mermaid, silent in the water, felt her heart break for the first time. The days after blurred into a kind of dream. She drifted through coral halls and kelp gardens, but everything felt dull. Her sisters sang, voices bright as bells, yet their songs no longer stirred her. The ocean felt smaller now, suffocating almost, and when she looked at her reflection in the shells, she saw not a mermaid, but a shadow of something unfinished. She began to visit the surface more often, drawn to the world above. She saw the prince again, walking the shore, searching the waves, his hand pressed to his chest where the sea had once claimed him. Sometimes he looked directly into the water, and she swore he saw her. Her grandmother, old as coral and twice as cold, warned her to stay beneath. Nothing good lives above, little one. The sea keeps what it loves. But the mermaid could not forget his eyes. It was not love, not yet. It was a hunger, the need to be seen. And so, one night, when the moon hung low and red over the water, she swam far from home to the place none dared to go, the black ravine where the sea witch lived. The sea witch's lair was made of bones, not the bones of fish, but of ships. Masts and timbers had been bent into arches, sails tattered into curtains. Lanterns made from skulls glowed with sickly green light, their flames dancing like trapped souls. The mermaid swam through the wreckage, her heart pounding. The water grew colder, heavier. Whispers brushed her ears, not words but feelings, warnings. And as the witch appeared, her hair floated like black ink, her eyes pale and still as pearls. She was not monstrous, not hideous, merely wrong, as though she had been carved from the deep itself and given the shape of a woman as a mockery. So, the witch said, her voice carrying through the water like a slow tide. Another one who dreams of legs. The mermaid bowed her head, trembling. I want to walk where he walks, she whispered, to be near him, to live on land. The witch smiled, and the sea seemed to retreat, as if even the water feared that expression. You wish for love? The mermaid hesitated. Yes. No, the witch said softly, drifting closer. You wish to be chosen. The mermaid flinched, but did not deny it. The witch circled her slowly, studying her, as one might study a delicate specimen. To become human, you must pay a price. Your voice, the song that binds your soul to the sea, will be mine. In exchange, I will give you legs, but each step will feel as though you are walking on knives. If the prince loves you and pledges his heart, you will remain human. But if he loves another, the witch leaned close, her cold fingers tracing the mermaid's cheek. You will turn to foam and vanish with the dawn. The mermaid swallowed her fear. I accept. The witch's grin widened. Ah, so quick to trade pain for possibility. She lifted a shell filled with dark liquid, something that pulsed faintly, as if alive. Drink this beneath the light of the moon. You will wake on the shore, silent but human. Remember, child of the sea, every gift the ocean gives, it takes back with interest. And with that, she vanished into the dark. The mermaid swam upward, clutching the potion to her chest. The sea around her seemed to watch, the currents restless, the creatures still. She reached the surface and broke through, gasping as though the air itself resisted her. The moonlight painted her face silver. She hesitated only once, looking down at her tail, the last proof of what she was, before she drank. The potion burned like frost and fire all at once. Her body convulsed. The water turned red around her, not with blood, but with the light of something breaking. She could not scream. She could not breathe. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying on the sand. The dawn was grey and soft. Her tail was gone. In its place, 2 legs, trembling, fragile and pale as sea glass. Every movement sent knives of pain through her body. She tried to speak, to call for help, but her voice was gone. The prince found her there. He thought her a shipwreck survivor, a girl washed ashore by grace of the tide. He carried her to the castle himself, his warmth seeping through her cold skin. He spoke to her gently, called her his miracle, and though she could not answer, her heart filled with a painful joy. He asked her name, and she smiled in silence. He said she reminded him of a dream he could not quite remember, a girl who had saved him from the sea, and though she knew it was her, she could not say the words. Her silence became her cage. Each night, as she lay awake in her chamber, overlooking the ocean, she heard the sea whisper to her, waves sighing like a heartbeat. Sometimes she thought she heard the witch's laughter, tangled in the tide. The prince grew kind to her, affectionate even, but in his eyes she saw that he was still searching for the one he believed had saved him, the one who was not her. And the mermaid, broken and voiceless, could only watch as the waves crashed below and wait for the day the ocean came to collect its due. The castle by the sea was a place of light and music. Every wall shimmered with banners of blue and gold, and the halls echoed with the laughter of courtiers who had never known hunger or silence. The mermaid, though she was no longer called that, drifted through these rooms like a ghost wrapped in silk. She had been given a name, Marina, as if the sea still clung to her like a shadow. The prince's attendants said it suited her, quiet, beautiful, foreign. To the prince, she was a curiosity, a miracle. He took her everywhere, showing her the gardens, the markets, the chapel where light broke through stained glass like shattered jewels. He spoke to her constantly, filling the void of her silence with his own voice. Sometimes he would pause and say, half to himself, "You look so much like her." She would tilt her head, asking with her eyes, "Who?" And he would only smile faintly. "The girl who saved me." The words pierced her like the edge of a blade. She could not cry. The tears would not come. Her body, still not entirely human, seemed to reject even grief. But at night, when she lay awake in her chamber, she could feel the ache where her tail once was. The waves would sigh outside her window, whispering her name in a language she was beginning to forget. The pain in her legs never left. Every step she took was agony, though she learned to hide it. The court thought her graceful, delicate. They mistook her stiffness for poise, her silence for virtue. Once, at a banquet, she watched the dancers spin beneath chandeliers. The prince took her hand, urging her to join him. She wanted to refuse, but he looked at her with such warmth that she could not deny him. She danced, every movement sending knives through her feet, blood staining her slippers beneath her gown. She smiled despite it, because he smiled at her, because for that one fleeting moment he looked at her and not at the dream he'd lost. But when the song ended, he turned away, his eyes catching the sea through the open window, his expression distant. She followed his gaze. The moon hung over the water, pale and indifferent. The sea had no mercy for those who loved the shore. Weeks passed. The prince grew restless. The counsellors whispered that he must marry soon, that alliances with neighbouring kingdoms were fragile. Then came the message. A princess from the northern lands would visit, a woman said to be beautiful, poised, and of noble blood. The court buzzed with excitement. The prince smiled when he heard the news, but there was a strange light in his eyes. She comes from the coast, he said, near where I was found. Perhaps she knows something of that night. The mermaid's heart thudded painfully. She tried to reach for him, to beg with her eyes, "Do not go," but he only kissed her hand and promised. "You're like her, Marina," she said, to have a voice like the sea itself. The words were almost cruel in their thoughtlessness. The day the princess arrived, the castle filled with music. She entered the hall in a gown the colour of midnight waves, her hair black as the ocean at its deepest trench. Her eyes glimmered with an uncanny light, green and cold. When she smiled, the air seemed to tighten, as if even the walls recognised something ancient in her. The mermaid froze the moment she saw her. Something deep within her, a fragment of the ocean that still lived in her blood, stirred. It was like hearing her own name, whispered from far away. The princess turned her gaze to her, and for a heartbeat they simply stared at one another. A flicker of recognition passed between them, though neither spoke. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft and low, carrying the rhythm of tides. "You must be the one they call Marina," she said, her smile never reaching her eyes. "The prince has told me of you." The mermaid bowed her head. She could not answer, of course. The princess stepped closer, studying her with something that looked almost like pity. "You poor, lovely thing," she murmured. "A bird without a song." That night, the mermaid could not sleep. She sat at her window, the moon's reflection trembling on the waves below. The sea looked so far away now, like a memory fading behind glass. She pressed her hand to the glass pane and thought she saw movement beneath the water. Shapes twisting, faces watching. The ocean called to her in soundless whispers. "Do you regret it?" The voice came from the shadows. She turned. And there stood the princess, dressed in pale silk, her hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes almost glowing in the moonlight. The mermaid's breath caught. She gestured in confusion. "How did you come here?" The princess smiled. "Doors open for those who know where to knock." She stepped closer, her gaze sweeping over the mermaid's trembling frame. "You're in pain." The mermaid nodded slowly. "Of course you are," the princess murmured. "The sea does not let go so easily. Tell me, child of the deep, do you think he truly loves you?" The words were like knives, but they were spoken so gently that they almost sounded like kindness. The mermaid lowered her head, tears burning behind her eyes. The princess leaned closer. "He dreams of another. He searches the sea each night for the woman who saved him. But you cannot tell him the truth, can you? Your voice is gone. Your soul half empty. You are fading." The mermaid closed her eyes, wishing she could shut out the words, but they were true. Every morning she woke weaker, her skin paler, her heartbeat slower. The sea was calling her home. The princess's tone softened. "There is a way to live." The mermaid's eyes opened. "Before dawn on his wedding night," the princess whispered, "take the blade I shall give you. Kill the prince before the sun rises. Let his blood touch your feet, and you will return to the sea. You will live again. You will be free." The mermaid stared at her, horrified. The princess smiled faintly. "You need not decide yet, but when the waves begin to whisper louder than his heart, you will know." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. The sea always takes back what belongs to it. It is better to choose how you return than to let it choose for you. And then she was gone, leaving only the faint scent of salt and roses behind. The days that followed were a blur of celebration. The prince and the princess were inseparable. Their laughter filled the halls, their hands entwined, their eyes shining with that cruel, careless light that only lovers share. The mermaid watched in silence, her smile fixed, her soul cracking. The prince still called her Marina, still thanked her for her kindness, still looked at her with fondness, but never love. Each night she felt her strength fade further. When she looked in the mirror, her reflection seemed to waver, like ripples on water. Sometimes she thought she saw her old self staring back, eyes dark and endless, hair floating like seaweed in the dark. And sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she could still feel the witch's hand against her cheek. Every gift the ocean gives, it takes back with interest. The wedding day came with the scent of salt in the air. The castle stood draped in banners and flowers, but the sea outside was restless. Waves crashing against the cliffs, foam spraying like breath. The mermaid moved through the halls in a daze, her bare feet leaving faint traces of water behind her. In her chamber, upon her bed, lay a knife. Its blade was slender and black, like the spine of some deep-sea creature. She knew who had placed it there. She picked it up. It felt warm, pulsing faintly, as though alive. Her heart pounded so loudly that she almost imagined she could hear her own voice again, faint, desperate, echoing in her skull. Outside, the bells rang. The prince and the princess stood before the altar, hands joined, vows spoken. The mermaid stood among the crowd, smiling a smile that did not reach her eyes. When the vows were sealed with a kiss, something inside her broke. The pain in her legs flared, unbearable, consuming. She stumbled from the hall before anyone could stop her. The sea called to her. The waves crashed like heartbeats. In her chamber, she fell to her knees, clutching the blade to her chest. The princess's voice whispered in her ear, not aloud, but within her thoughts, "He is gone from you. You will die at dawn, or you may live. The choice is yours." The mermaid trembled. She remembered his smile, his kindness, the warmth of his hand. She remembered the way he had looked at her by the fire, unaware that every word he spoke carved her a little smaller. She pressed the knife to her heart, then lowered it, number. She rose and walked barefoot through the halls, following the music, the laughter. She reached the balcony where the prince stood alone, gazing out at the waves. He turned as she approached, his face lighting up with genuine affection. "Marina, you should be resting. You look pale." She could not answer. He stepped closer. "What is it?" Her hand shook. The blade gleamed in the moonlight. She hesitated, and in that moment of mercy, something inside her whispered, "He will never love you." Her tears fell silently. She raised the blade, and the sea held its breath. The night was a wound that would not close. The sea lay still beneath the moon's reflection, black as ink, and the ship, anchored near the cliffs, shimmered with torchlight. Laughter spilled from its deck, the sounds of joy and music rippling over the waves. The mermaid stood at the edge of the pier, a thin blade trembling in her hand, and the white silk of her borrowed gown fluttered around her like ghostly foam. Tomorrow, at dawn, the prince would wed the woman from the neighbouring kingdom, the woman whose face was all charm and kindness, whose presence made even the gulls fall silent in awe. The mermaid's heart was breaking, but no tears came. She hadn't been able to cry since she gave up her tongue. Instead, the grief swelled inside her chest until it burned. The witch had told her what to do. That morning, in the solitude of the dunes, the crone's voice had crept from the waves. "If you cannot be his bride, child, then let his blood seal your place in this world. Take his life before the sun rises, and you will live again, whole, eternal, and free." The dagger she now held was beautiful, silver and cold, its handle shaped like coral, its blade sharp enough to catch moonlight. The witch's laughter still echoed in her mind. She climbed aboard the ship silently, her feet bare against the polished wood, the smell of wine and salt mingling in the air. Music drifted from the upper deck, violins and flutes, a waltz meant for celebration. The prince and his bride danced under lanterns strung like stars. Her heart beat faster when she saw him. He looked radiant, his eyes shining, his voice warm as he whispered to the dark-haired woman in his arms. His hand brushed her cheek gently, a gesture once reserved for the mermaid when she had first stepped ashore, trembling and mute, her feet bleeding from the transformation. It felt like centuries ago. She remembered how he had smiled when he found her half drowned on the sand, how he had carried her into his palace, fed her, clothed her, and told her stories of the world above the waves, how he had called her his little foundling, his miracle. And then the other woman had arrived, beautiful, noble, refined, a princess from across the sea. He said she reminded him of the one who had saved him from drowning. The mermaid's heart shattered then, for she had been the one who saved him, but he would never know. She waited until the dance ended. The prince led his new bride toward the cabin, and the guests, tipsy and content, drifted away. Only the whisper of the waves filled the silence now. The mermaid followed. Inside, the cabin glowed with candlelight. The prince sat near the window, gazing at the stars, while the bride's back was to the door. Her dark hair loose down her back. The mermaid took one step closer, the blade cold against her palm. Her body trembled, not from fear, but from sorrow. She moved behind the prince, silent as tide water. The blade hovered above his heart. Her lips parted in a voiceless plea. "Forgive me." The ship groaned. A gust of wind blew through the open window, and she plunged the dagger down. A soft gasp escaped the prince's lips as his blood bloomed across his shirt, red as coral, dark as the depths. He looked back, not in anger, but confusion, his eyes searching hers, as if asking why. Her knees buckled. She caught him as he fell. His head rested against her chest. She could feel the fading beat of his heart, a fragile drum drowning beneath waves. Her tears, the first she had felt since losing her voice, spilled silently down her face. Behind her, the bride laughed. The sound was wrong, low, mocking, ancient. The mermaid turned, clutching the dying prince. The woman before her was no longer radiant. Her gown shimmered like oil. Her skin glowed faintly blue, and when she smiled, her teeth were sharp as seashells. "Oh, my sweet girl," said the witch, her voice rich and cruel. "You've done so well." The mermaid's breath caught. "You?" "Yes, I," said the witch. "Who do you think gave him those dreams of another face? Who whispered your doom into his ear? You thought love would free you. I told you once, the sea takes what belongs to it." The witch stepped closer, her form rippling like water. "Now he is mine," she whispered, brushing a hand through the prince's dark hair. "And you may return home, as promised." The mermaid's voice cracked into the air, breaking free. For the first time since her transformation, a sound, raw and sorrowful. Why? Why him? Because love is the deepest root of despair, the witch said softly. It feeds the ocean well. The candles flickered. The witch's body dissolved into mist, her laughter fading into the sea's endless sigh. The mermaid looked down at the prince, whose eyes were open now, but lifeless, reflecting only the moonlight. The blood on her hands glistened like scales. She staggered to her feet and fled the cabin. The waves called to her. She leapt from the ship, plunging into the cold embrace of the sea. The salt stung her wounds. Her dress billowed around her like a shroud, and her legs began to ache, burning, breaking, changing. The pain was unbearable, but she did not fight it. When she opened her eyes again, she was deep beneath the surface. Her tail shimmered once more, iridescent and terrible. Her hair floating like smoke around her. The ocean greeted her like an old lover. Whispers drifted from the dark trenches below. Voices of her sisters, her mother, the countless souls the witch had claimed. They sang softly, not of comfort, but of grief. She swam toward the ruins of her father's coral hall, its once bright walls overgrown with dark anemones. Everything was as it had been, and yet nothing was. She wandered among the wreckage, wordless, endless. Sometimes she saw shadows move in the distance, the outline of a man, drifting where no man should be, the prince's face, pale and still, turning toward her as if waiting, and she followed, always, never reaching. Years passed, or perhaps it was only the rhythm of tides. The mermaid became a story told by sailors who swore they'd seen her silhouette in the moonlight, her hair black with grief, her eyes glowing faintly beneath the waves. They said she still searched the surface for him. They said her voice could be heard on stormy nights, singing a lullaby to a lover she had killed. And deep in the trenches of the sea, the witch smiled, watching her creation drift forever through her watery kingdom, a bride to the ocean, bound not by love, but by sorrow. The sea kept what was hers, and the mermaid, once full of hope, became its haunting hymn.